Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 184, September the 5th, 2017. Tuesday. Well, hopefully I had a 4-day weekend. Hopefully most of you or all of you did. And hopefully you had a good 3 or 4 day weekend, whatever you got there. And now it's back to the grind, as they would say. So anyway, this is back to TowerGate for Tuesday 2017. Well, we've got some things to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's expose on the Reverend Jackson. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Could have done a 2-hour video on Mr. Jackson, but I had to keep it to about a half an hour. But hopefully I got the job done, and you know exactly what we're talking about. Now, let's get on to today's TowerGate news. We'll start with the soft stuff first and get to the heavy stuff later. Former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine's son is a proud Antifa member. Congratulations, Tim, on raising a terrorist. Linwood Keynes arrested in Minnesota at the state capitol after disrupting a pro-Trump rally. Well, I don't know if Tim Kaine knows it, but Antifa has now been defined as and labeled as a domestic terrorist organization. And so should they be. And so Tim Kaine, I'm sure he's proud of his son, an ardent anti-Trumper. And we'll find out what Tim Kaine had to do with that little incident in Virginia. But something tells me, and I've heard from the scuttlebutt and from some emails, apparently, that Tim Kaine may have had a few email conversations with the governor, the bagman, Terry McAuliffe, that are of some interest to some individuals looking into what happened there in Virginia. Hopefully, Mr. Sessions is working on that now. Congratulations, Tim, for raising a terrorist. Well done. Well, it looks like Trump has pulled off a masterstroke on DACA. Beautifully done. The DACA will be ending after a 6-month delay. Very, very smart move. What this means is that Republicans running in the primary next spring will have to take a position on DACA, which is very popular with the Trump base. People like Jeff Flake, Paul Big Ears Ryan, and other anti-Trumpers will be forced to take a position right in the heart of the Republican primaries. Very, very smart move on Trump's part. You know, it looks like to me that he's already laying out a strategy. We saw it when he came out and for who he endorsed down in South Carolina to take Sessions' seat. We can see it with the way he's talking, endorsing the opponent of Jeff the Flake. It looks to me like what Trump is going to do is play a little politics. Something tells me, even though he's a rookie, he's pretty good at it. It looks like to me what he's going to do is he's going to take some of the key, more pointed issues, things he wanted to get done, such as the wall, various other things, all the things, repealing, replacing Obamacare and all these things, and he is going to work things out so that during the Republican primaries, these are going to be very hotly debated issues. And I think Trump is going to come out and support a lot of primary challengers to people like these establishment candidates like Jeff the Flake and Paul Ryan. And this will be unprecedented. This is not done. I mean, I've never seen this done, not in my lifetime. Normally, even if a president is particularly love a particular member of Congress and maybe who hasn't been very supportive of him, they generally do not come out and back someone against a sitting representative or senator. They normally bite their tongue and follow the party line and try to support the party. It appears that Trump's going to break rank for the first time in, well, my lifetime. He's actually may come out, and it looks like this is exactly what he's going to do, and he is actually going to oppose established Republicans already holding those seats in Congress. He is going to support their primary challengers. Not only that, he is going to work his agenda over the next 6 to 8 months. He is going to work his agenda so that it puts a lot of these issues front and center right during the Republican primaries, forcing these people to come out and take a position, either a position which many of them are taking now, where they're opposed to Trump, which will put them in deep jeopardy of losing their seat, or they have to flip-flop and jump on the Trump train and support Trump to hopefully keep their seat. That's what it's going to come down to for a lot of these Republicans. He's putting them in a very, very difficult and uncomfortable position. Very, very wise move. I'm telling you, this guy is not your regular, normal politician. He's not a politician, really. And he does play hardball. He knows how to play the game. And he is not afraid to break traditions, break rank. I mean, he's extraordinary. And I must say, these are wonderful times to be living in if you're interested in this type of stuff. It's fun to watch as well. I actually feel like, for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I have a president that's on my side, that's on the team, that's not trying to screw me, that's not trying to screw America. And the contrast that he's drawing, he's now showing, because he is so on the side of the folks, it's drawing this incredible contrast between the anti-Trumpers and the people who seek to take him down. He's really shining the light on them and exposing them even more than would normally happen. See, a normal Republican president would suck it up and endorse Twitch, and endorse Big Ears Ryan, and endorse Jeff the Flake. They would suck it up. Trump's not doing that. In fact, he's doing just the opposite. I concur 100%. Fantastic strategy. It's refreshing. And it's going to make for a very interesting 2018 and 2020. I do predict that we are going to see an extraordinary historic election for both Republicans and Democrats, with establishment candidates getting, a lot of them getting voted out and a lot of them getting the scare of their life. That's for sure. We've got the right man at the helm, my friends. Well, the satanic offspring of rotten Reverend Clinton and Webster Hubbell, Chelsea Hubbell Clinton, attacked Trump on Twitter over his lack of EPA presence in Texas. And of course, she got an immediate response from Trump supporters and even Texas Democrats. Just like her mother, she's a divider and she's politically unskilled. So, what has Chelsea Hubbell Clinton ever done for America? Besides tweeting out Marxist platitudes and complaining about her criminal mother's election loss, what has she done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And what will she do? Nothing. She may be more popular than the rotten Reverend herself. And she has fewer political skills. I don't like her very much. Yep, Chelsea Hubbell Clinton. Got a head on her like a house cat. All right, we have some good news. Madonna, one of the many Hollywood lefties who swore they would leave the country if Trump won, is leaving. Looks like she's headed to Spain. And I think she's been in Australia recently, but it looks like she's headed to Spain. No, she's headed to Portugal. Of course, she'll probably stop in Spain on the way to Portugal, but she's headed to Portugal, where she will be working on a new movie and making a new record, which hopefully no one will buy, because she hasn't been relative in a very, very long time. I doubt her movie will do very well. Nobody likes her. Not very much, anyway. Unfortunately, what you can expect is as soon as she's done making her movie and all that kind of stuff in Portugal, she'll be back. She'll be back. But I wish she would stay in Portugal, and I wish that a lot of her friends would join her there. Cher, Alec Baldwin, Sean Penn, although he may be headed somewhere else. Johnny, maybe they can find a space in one of their properties there for Johnny He don't have any more money. He had to file bankruptcy. He's selling his plane. He's selling a lot of his assets. So it looks like Johnny may need a place to stay. Maybe they can put him up there in Portugal, in Madonna's pad. Let's see here. Well, we also have the liberal snowflakes out in California want to change Father's Day to Special Persons Day. Well, that's a stupid idea. You know, they're already doing that. I think that got started in Australia, which is, it's sad to see what's happened to Australia. It used to be a good country. They've gone completely wacko off the rails. I imagine at some point they'll realize that and begin to turn it around. I expect to see something happen there in the not too distant future. Got a lot of solid people there in Australia, and eventually they'll get fed up with the political correctness themselves, and they'll get a Trump type individual in there. Hopefully they can find one. He's a very rare type individual, purely American. You almost have to be an American to get a guy like Trump. But anyway, these leftist snowflakes, you know, it's not really society's problem that many of these people don't know who their daddy is. And I feel for those people. I know there's a lot of deadbeat dads out there. I do understand the situation. It's not good when children grow up not knowing who their father was or what have you. I realize that there's complicated situations, but there's also other situations, and I would think probably the majority of the time, just some bad decisions, some irresponsible behavior maybe led to that reality for those young'uns. And to some of those lefties out in California, you know, I don't know if your mom was hanging out in Arkansas in the 1980s, but if your mom was whoring around in Arkansas in the 1980s, I can probably guess who your daddy may be. But anyway, to those folks out in California, Father's Day changed to Special Person Day. Bad idea. Don't think it's going to sell here. Oh, they'll probably do it in California. I have no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. But to those people, all I can say is enjoy your new tax increases, because that's exactly what they're planning for you out in California. They have a lot of new tax increases that they're coming up with, and I don't know how people afford to live out there. And now the government in California, which is almost completely Democratic, have worked up about a half a dozen new taxes for their citizens out there to pay. I don't know how there's any conservatives or libertarians or anything like that even left in California, except for the ones who are really, really rich and can afford to pay all those taxes and can buy them a house somewhere in a gated community where they're away from the crazy people. But for the rank and file Republican type or, you know, normal person living out in California, you got to think that those people are heading to somewhere, Phoenix or Nevada or Salt Lake or somewhere. You certainly don't want to go to Seattle or Portland, but you got to think a lot of those people are getting out of there pretty soon. I just don't know how much longer California can go before they go into a complete state of collapse. State's just nuts, absolutely nuts. But enjoy your new taxes and Special Person Day. Wonderful, fantastic idea. Now let's see. We have Meghan McCain, daughter of Senator Wet Start Magoo, coming out and tweeting that America needs my dad now more than ever. Yeah, Meghan, just like Custer needed more Indians. Well, at least Meghan McCain got her daddy's boobs. It's probably the best thing you can say for Meghan McShame, daughter of Senator Wet Start Magoo, who just a couple of days ago was over in Italy on foreign soil ridiculing the president. Wonderful. Okay, now for the top story of the day, the main story of the day, and it's piggybacking kind of onto a story that I talked about 2 or 3 videos ago, where we talked about the fact that was reported by Byron York at the Washington Examiner that the DOJ and the FBI are blocking The Senate Judiciary Committee heads, which are Grassley and Turning Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, they're not allowing the Senate Judiciary Committee to interview James Rybicki and Carl Gados. Rybicki was FBI dishonorable FBI Director James Comey's chief of staff, and apparently someone who's very in the know about those memos which lay out the case for letting the Rotten Reverend off the hook, exonerating her back as early as May, maybe even April of 2016, before any witnesses were even interviewed, including the Rotten Reverend herself. But it seems like the question and the questions that really have the FBI and the DOJ throwing this cock block move at the Senate Judiciary Committee is the fact that they want to talk to Mr. Rybicki a little bit about the dossier. You know, it appears from what Byron York is reporting that Turning Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein and Charles Grassley, through some information they've gotten, whether it's closed-door sessions, emails they've read, somebody whispered in their ear, something, they've gotten some information that leads them to believe that, contrary to what we've believed up to this point, that the FBI did not pay Christopher Steele any money. He is the one who's been accused and has in fact admitted to being the one who put together the dossier. Now he's claiming now that he didn't actually go get the information. It came to him. But for all practical purposes in this conversation, he's the one who put together the dossier. Now we know back in late summer, even though it's just now beginning, well, it's still summer actually, but back in, I guess, what, June? I guess it was back in June when the issue of the dossier was on the front burner and they were talking about it. We had learned that the FBI had considered paying Christopher Steele to verify the dossier once John McCain, Senator Magoo, had delivered it to Comey and he read it. He didn't know if he believed it or not, so we're told that at this point that he was considering paying Christopher Steele to verify what was in the dossier. But now it appears, according to Byron York at the Washington Examiner, that Charles Grassley and Turning Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein may have learned something. They now suspect possibly that the FBI did fund Christopher Steele to continue his work on the dossier, possibly after the election. Now, it appears when Byron York is talking about this, he goes back and he looks closely at the hearings where James Comey was having this question and answer session with Turning Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, and Charles Grassley, and Lindsey Candy Pants Graham. And they were talking about this dossier, and they all three, in different ways, asked him about this arrangement to possibly making payments, and he really would not answer the question. He danced around it 2 or 3 times. He just said, well, I'm not going to talk about that. So he really did not want to talk about anything having to do with the FBI possibly funding it. And then he talked about maybe it's would have to be discussed in a closed session or something like that. My guess is they never got the answer that they wanted. But apparently they've learned something, because in that first letter they sent, the letter that Feinstein and Grassley sent to the FBI and the DOJ, specifically to request to speak to Mr. Rybicki and Carl Gados, they listed some of the questions that they wanted these guys to be prepared for, and a couple of them questions had to do with the funding of the dossier and possible funding by the FBI of the dossier for whatever reason. And it appears that this may be the reason that the DOJ and the FBI does not want these two individuals having to go to the Senate and testify. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going, hey, Mike, but doesn't the Senate Judiciary Committee have oversight, responsibility, and authority over the FBI and the DOJ? Yes, they do. They absolutely do. And this is why they're very unhappy. So now, in following up to that, it appears that Grassley and Candy Pants Graham have now sent a letter to Sessions to let him know that they're not very happy about the cock block on Mr. Rybicki and Mr. Gatos. So what we have here is we have not what I would consider a constitutional crisis, but we certainly have a situation where we have the Judiciary Committee, and also keep in mind that the Oversight Committee in the House also has oversight responsibility on the House side, and it will be interesting to see after I assume this week when they come back from vacation, whether or not the Oversight Committee, headed by the Pitbull, Trey Gowdy, we will see if the Pitbull, Trey Gowdy, decides that he wants to ask a few questions about this. Maybe he's onto it as well. Maybe he's got some of this intel as well. Maybe he's talked to somebody over there in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and maybe he too is curious about whether or not the FBI was involved in financing that dossier. And if so, was it just to have the dossier verified, or maybe were they financing it before that? Is it possible that the reason why they do not want us to find out who was bankrolling that dossier and Christopher Steele is because maybe we'll find out that the person or agency, one of the agencies funding the dossier, was either the FBI with Mr. McCabe and the dishonorable Comey, or maybe even our good friend John Brennan at the CIA. This is a cover your ass situation going on. You can see it right here. It's the DOJ and the FBI covering for each other, obstructing the work of the Senate Judiciary Committee, obstructing the work possibly of the Oversight Committee in the House. What are they protecting? Who are they protecting? What is going on here? Now Jeff Sessions needs to call whoever it is that's making these decisions into his office, and he needs to tell them, hey, this is how it works. Now, the letter that they sent back originally stated things about, well, they had issues with national security, blah, 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 blah. Of course, then they got a response back from Grassley. It's like, this thing has nothing to do with national security. This is about who funded the dossier. This is about Comey memos. Ain't got nothing to do with state secrets, nothing to do with military maneuvers, nothing to do with secret weapons programs, nothing to do with secret intel. This is about what happened in the election, the email investigation, and what is going on with that dossier, which apparently Mr. Grassley is all over that dossier. He really wants to get to the bottom of that. Maybe they should bring in Senator Wet Start Magoo. I'm sure he could shine some light on that. Candy Pants Graham, he's your butt buddy. Why don't you shine his hiney and see if he'll give you a little info, a little pillow talk maybe. Think we could have that arranged? Mr. Graham? Think you could find Senator Magoo's soft spot? Rub his belly? Something like that? Maybe. Either way, this thing's eventually going to shake itself out. I don't know how long they can continue to drag this out. Eventually, as long as people keep chewing on this bone, eventually it's got to come out. And like I said, the FBI, if they wanted to find out who funded that dossier, they could certainly find out if it was done above board. Now, if it's done by the CIA, if it was done by the FBI, no, you wouldn't see that money show up. That would have been money in an envelope in a parking garage at 4 in the morning. If it was legitimately funded by some Democratic donor, you will find that in the tax records of GPS. We know roughly how much money it was, and we know the time period for which that money would have been paid. Wouldn't be hard to find out by looking at the tax records, the earned income statement of GPS. The FBI knows that. This is not rocket science. I'm not a rocket scientist, and I can figure that one out. So, it's obvious. They do not want us to know who funded the dossier. At least was part of it. Why? If it's just some Democratic donor, what does it matter to the Justice Department? What does it matter to the FBI? Even if it was the rotten Reverend herself, even if it was anybody having to, it could have been Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. It could have been Imran Awan. It could have been anybody. Any of these people. Would be nothing illegal about it. These types of things are done. Of course, if we find out that it was the CIA, John Brennan, Mr. McCabe, or the dishonorable Comey, the members of a branch of the government, if we find out that they were the ones who were funding the dossier, oh, that would be a whole different story there. This is why Mr. York at the Washington Examiner is asking the questions. This is why Turn In Your Guns Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein and Charles Grassley and Candy Pants Graham are asking the question. And once they reconvene, we'll see what the pitbull, Trey Gowdy, what kind of questions he's asking. Because it's obvious they're cock-blocking. Why? Who are they protecting? Very simple. Something's going on here, folks. There's no reason to protect anybody who's a private citizen, Democratic donor, or anyone else. They would only be acting this way if there was something really, really damaging. Someone, various people. And again, when you look at all these situations, you can see that the intelligence agencies, the FBI, and the DOJ are all in cahoots together. If any one person of any of these three agencies gets taken down, they all go down because they're interconnected. And when you bring one down and get the truth out about what they were involved in, it drags the other two in. These three groups, the intelligence agencies, the FBI, and the Justice Department, are in lockstep with one another and the activity that we're dealing with now and trying to get to the bottom of. That's why they're all sticking together, because they're all connected and they're all involved and they're all culpable in these crimes. I think we'll eventually get to the bottom of it. Mr. Gubarev's attorneys are certainly interested in getting to the bottom of it. They want to know the answer to that question too. What happens if Mr. Gubarev's attorneys discover that it was someone in the intelligence community or the FBI who is actually funding some of that research? Christopher Steele wouldn't mind. He'd like to get off the hook. He doesn't want to be sued for all them millions, nor does Fusion GPS. They'll be looking for someone to cover their ass as well. Wait till we start seeing the Justice Department and the FBI trying to cover GPS's ass. That'll make it really obvious that something's going on. You see how this works, my friends? Marge, fish for dinner last night. Apparently, she has fish for dinner every night. Okay, finally, South Korea and Japan are preparing for war. Period. I know Trump does not want to go to war. I know he does not. He's being put in a position where he inherited a very bad deal. But we are not in a position anymore to kick the can down the road. I would hate to see it happen because I know that the domestic agenda goes south. I know that a lot of bad things happen. There's a lot of things you can't predict that could happen. All of them bad. A lot of question marks. I don't like it at all. It's the last thing in the world I want is war with North Korea. But for whatever reason, the military people, the people around that demonic Teletubby in North Korea are not thinking clearly. They believe because for the last 50 years they've been able to play the game that it's going to continue, but it's not. Because now we have the demonic Teletubby announcing he's going to test another hydrogen bomb, and he's going to test some more ICBMs. The two bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Fat Boy and Little Man, were 15 and 20 megatons. The weapon that he tested is estimated over the weekend was believed to be somewhere between 120 and 150 megatons. 10 to 15 times the bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And his bombs only get more powerful, and he will only get more and more technology and targeting in his ICBMs. He's not leaving us any choice. If the military people around the demonic Teletubby have a lick of sense in their head, they will take him out in a coup and save their life. Because believe me, their lives right now, I can tell you that South Korea and Japan are preparing for war. Trump is pretty much taking his last final move diplomatically with sanctions. He's doing the last hardcore thing you can do. He's going to sanction, remember, North Korea relies 85% on trade from China. He's going to use the last thing he's got by sanctioning oil. He's also going to put sanctions on Chinese banks. These are hardcore sanctions and can really ratchet things up. He's talking even about maybe trade sanctions with China, which would be bad for the United States. It would be very bad for China, bad for the United States. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do. This is as far as he can go. I have no doubt that right now that the military has already prepared two plans. One is to continue these really hardcore sanctions on China, on energy, especially going into the winter, on North Korea, to have that plan and to move forward with that plan and see if that gets China to actually really crack down. But I think there's already a plan on the table that if Kim Jong-un, the demonic Teletubby, launches another one of those or tests another big missile, if he makes a mistake or a miscalculation, if he screws it up, we're going to hit him. South Korea and Japan are preparing for war. And Trump met this morning with his guys to go over his options, military options. I think that the decision's already pretty much been made. It's just a question of, if he does this, we're going to do this. If he does this, we'll do this. If he does this, we do this. I think that has already been decided on. I think the plan is in place, so there won't be any delay. So at this point, like I say, those folks who are around the demonic Teletubby in North Korea, they better orchestrate a coup, and they better do it quick. Their days are numbered, because I can tell you that Kim Jong-un, the demonic Teletubby, is not going to back down. It's not going to happen. We can run this game out, but I can tell you where it ends up. And I don't think we're going to get through Trump's first 4 years without him being forced to hit North Korea. Just don't see another way. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's TowerGate, day 184, September 5th, 2017, Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Hey, Maura, you and anyone else living up there on the coast, keep your eye on Hurricane Irene. That's a nasty storm. Keep your eye on her. Y'all have a good night. Goodbye.